let's get started. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining. My name is Roberto Priolo. I am the editor of Planet Lean, which is the official magazine of the Lean Global Network. I would like to give you a very warm welcome. And this webinar, I'm really happy we could make it happen. In this virtual room with me are the authors of a wonderful white paper that is being launched today. And this webinar is the opportunity for the team to tell us how they made this amazing work happen. I've been very lucky to work with them for the past few years, helping them. And I've really seen some amazing things. This team is one of my favorites to work with. They have fantastic synergy. And they've been doing amazing work documenting their learnings in lean healthcare around the world. Let me briefly introduce the people, our speakers today. So we have, let's start from the west and go east. So we have Alice Lee from the Lean Enterprise Institute. Hello, Alice. Good morning to you. Next is our friends from Brazil. We have Dr. Frederico Pinto and Flavio Battaglia from the Lean Institute Brazil. And Dr. Fred is, of course, as well the CEO of Cancer Center in São José do Campos. I think I did.
Yes, good.
Proper. Oh, there you go. Then if we cross the Atlantic, well, I already introduced myself. And here with me in Barcelona, although of course in, not in the same place, are Oriol Catrecasas and Cristina Foncuberta from the Lean Institute Spain. And finally, in Moscow is, we call him Slava because nobody can pronounce his name properly, but I will try. So it's Vyacheslav Baltrukevich. How did I do, Slava?
That's perfect, Roberto. Perfect.
Thank you very much. You're very kind. So thank you everybody for being here. And a little bit of housekeeping. If anybody has a question to ask, you will see at the bottom a Q&A button, and that's where you can click on and you can type your question. And at the end of the webinar, we'll try and answer as many as we can. And those that we can't, we'll find a way to get them answered anyway. I would say let's get started. And I would like to ask the leader of our Lean Healthcare Initiative team, who is Flavio, to briefly introduce the team in the sense, tell us what is the purpose. When you set off a few years back, when this team was formed, what was the purpose? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? As lean thinkers, this is a question that we always like to begin with, I think. What is the problem we were trying to solve with this team?
Thank you, Roberto. Hi, everyone. Well, this group was created in 2015 during one of our Lean Global Network annual meeting. So this meeting took place in Poland, and I was invited by the executive committee to coordinate this group. And we basically realized that there were many healthcare initiatives spread around the globe, and maybe it was time to start connecting some of those pieces. So we decided to gather the most experienced people we got at that time to start working together, so we could increase our own knowledge and maybe start sharing some of our knowledge with the world. And of course, the things that we could possibly learn together. So basically, what was the problem that we're trying to solve? So the major purpose of our initiative since the very beginning is to fix healthcare around the world. So of course, it is a very ambitious accomplishment, but we decided to start with a bold and a clear true north guiding us. So we soon realized that it can often take a healthcare organization almost a decade to develop and sustain the required capabilities for an effective lean transformation. And we believe that 10 years is too long. It's a lot of time, and especially if we consider the pressing issues for the industry today, especially during and after this COVID crisis. I think those ideas can be very powerful. And of course, if we do that, we can try to make things happen in a faster way. And this is what we are trying to do. We're trying to learn together and share with our guys, with the people that we know around the world that can learn with us. So, and who is this paper for? I think this is an important question. I would like to make it clear before we go forward, because this white paper was written having in mind the key people inside healthcare organizations, the people who are responsible for shaping and for designing the lean transformation. We call them the chief architects. So, and during the research, we found that this role is very critical for the hospitals to succeed. And because without the chief architect, someone thinking the broader system, life becomes much harder. So this is the person who must assume a strong ownership for the progress, spread and deepen the knowledge and practice, and think about what the next move should be. And of course, at the end of this article, you can see some of the explicit tips we try to make for the chief architect. So don't forget to check it at the end of the article.
Very good. Thank you, Flavio. So this is a fantastic mission to have. I mean, transforming healthcare around the world. I can't think of anything more important, and especially right now. I mean, there's sort of like an elephant in the room, and everybody is probably wondering this. I mean, we are in the middle of a pandemic. So I thought that even though this is not specific to COVID-19 as a webinar, I think it's still important that we address it. Why? I would like to ask this to Christina from Spain. Why is this important? Why is this white paper important now? And I mean, like I said, of course, we're not going to be talking specifically about this. There will be other opportunities. There have been articles on Planet Lean that we're going to share a link to. But I think it's really important, you know, so in general, we think of lean transformation as a long-term problem. Right now, we're being faced with like very urgent problems to solve. So Christina, what have you been observing with regards to COVID-19, and why is this white paper relevant even in a situation like the current one?
So I would say that the guiding principles that we are going to share in a moment, presented in the white paper, should help to transform processes and management system of healthcare organizations to a lean system. And over the last weeks, me and my colleagues have confirmed that really lean organizations have been able to better face this crisis. So I think this could be a good link. And so it is clear that understanding and adopting these principles, it's key, it's interesting, it's demanding at the same time, but necessary now. By this, we do not mean that healthcare organizations that do not apply lean, they are doing not correctly. Of course, all healthcare professionals have been working very, very hard for the last weeks. But what we say is, well, maybe sometimes working hard, it's not enough, right? So, and as I said, during the whole crisis, we have been in touch and talking directly with hospitals of our network. And so many of, a lot of them, we have been partnering in learning for many years, and we have again confirmed that lean thinking makes a difference, I would say. I remember, I don't know, in my case in Oriol in Barcelona, among the examples we have, I remember talking with Anna, Rosa, Gemma, among others, and how they explain us. For example, I don't know, how they constantly iterate their standards very fast, but at the same time thinking and planning. So it's more about a Kaizen approach more than a trial and error. And also, I don't know, another one which was interesting, that they have at each bed a visual checklist for the professionals to know at each moment what was necessary. We have examples of they explaining us a Kanban system for professionals, for identifying professionals that had been infected, so they had to go home very fast. So a Kanban system. We talk about visual boards that indicate you very fast which new areas are transforming into COVID areas. Efficiently training with Iluo matrix their professionals, etc. But I would say that among everything, the ability to anticipate and be fast and flexible, I would highlight this. So we decided to group and share all these concrete and real examples from different hospitals from all over the world that we are, and linking to lean practices. And so this is what you see in the slide is the article we launched last month for the ones that you have not read it. And we firmly believe that they can help with lean to fight this COVID crisis at the moment.
That's great. Thank you, Christina. So we will be sharing the link to that article for those who didn't have a chance to read it. It's been received very well by the community. So I really recommend you have a read if you're in healthcare and interested about how lean can help in a moment of, in an emergency, let's say. So I would like to move on now to, let's go back to the white paper. And I would like to really talk about the synergies that exist and the collaboration that exists within this team and how it allowed you guys to work together so effectively to produce what you produce. And like after that, we're going to be looking deeper into the approach that was used. But before that, I would like to ask Alice if she can please share a few thoughts on really what she observed in terms of the observation between with your colleagues, with the rest of the team. What was the value of working with such a diverse group of professionals and with so many different experiences?
Yeah, so, you know, I think back of all these years working with such an incredible team very fondly, and we still continue to do work together, but we were mostly strangers to each other. We knew of each other, we knew of each other's work, but we never really worked together. But I will say it was a treat to observe and study such experienced lean coaches in the field. It was like an anthropology study. But for me, the bigger treat was being studied and have the wisdom of these outside eyes. You know, they're incredible, they're relentless, but they were studying and documenting, for instance, my thinking, my decisions, my actions. And then we could lay them out as we studied each other and start to understand the patterns in our thinking and our approaches. And, you know, I kind of come from an academic environment. And what I really liked about that was that I'm used to case studies where they're retrospective study, usually of an organization or something that's happened, but that's a singular perspective. And I think the work we were doing was a little different than that. It was bringing together a lot of perspectives, but trying to find, I forget who said this, but one of the coaches talked about it like we're like tailors, right? That there were patterns that we all used, but that we were trying to develop more tailors. And how do we study ourselves to understand how to create these tailors to take similar patterns and create clothing that fit for the situation or for that body. That's exactly what it was like. And it really, none of us had done that before, but I think going through the process of learning and studying and reflecting together helped us all be more mindful coaches because we shared the same passion of fixing healthcare. I know we all smile because that's a big goal, but that's why all of us were doing this. But we also had the impatience that we had to do better and that we had to go faster. And all of that brought us together very, very quickly so that we were able to work very easily together because we shared that mindset. And I thought it was invaluable time for us to be together, to learn, study, reflect, and in that process, be able to elucidate those characteristics in transformation using lean thinking and practice that was so important that we thought was important enough to share in the white paper for the world.
Very good.
Great experience.
Thank you, Alice. And I have to say that like it's incredible like to see the variety of experience that this group has. And I mean there are not only lean coaches, there are also practitioners like Dr. Fred, and we've been working with many others who couldn't necessarily be with us today, but like it's been fantastic to see how all this knowledge has been captured and really into a document that I personally think is really, really powerful in the way that it kind of outlines very practically what people can do to really shorten that lead time to really help organizations transform. So really, thank you for that, Alice. I would like now to move on to Slava and ask you, what was the approach that you guys used to really produce, to do your research, and from that really kind of put together all this data and elaborate it and understand it, and then which then led to the white paper. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And as Alice said, we have moved around the world a few times all together with all the team, and to understand how we capture this knowledge is probably not less important than to understand and to see, to learn what actually we have captured. So basically we wanted to pick up a model which would structure somehow our work. And we took Lean transformation framework, the basic model, as a tool, as a vehicle to capture the knowledge that has existed already out there in the cases in the hospitals where we chose for our study. For those who don't know or is not familiar with LTF, Lean transformation framework, it's about several pillars. Value-driven purpose is something we have to decide, to learn, to capture why these changes are made. And then process improvement and capability development are going alongside. Management system in the middle is how the daily management system is organized. It's also practices and tools are in place where we wanted to capture. And the basic thinking, mindset of top management as well as people at Gemba level, at the shop floor. And this basic model has led us to capture information that was out there in a more or less structured way. And we actually used three, I would say, components to learn information from. First one is we looked by our eyes on the shop floor and physical changes that has been made by terrific people in hospitals, and those ones we were lucky to see and to watch. Second one, second component, as we learned from people in the hospitals why they chose the changes they have done, what they have done, what they have felt, what results, etc., etc. And third, our own understanding of these changes and results in the hospitals. So we captured, as you can see below on this slide, we captured in 5 different hospitals in different continents what has been done along the framework. We had the different information. And then we moved on to a comparative analysis and tried to see similarities within the several changes, great changes that has been done in different hospitals, in different organizations. And we have seen a lot of similarities, over 20, as you can see above, in the above part of this slide. And it led us to go from just knowledge capture to some findings. We tested it along the way between us and with people we met while doing this. And finally, this led us to formulate a few points, a few steps, or a few the principles that have been in place in more or less all these hospitals.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Slava. We're going to get to the principles in a second. Before then, I would just like to ask Oriol if we can share for like really a minute. I think that very interesting about this has been like the research that you've done on the field. So can you tell us what the role of the Gemba was in this process of research?
Well, as Alice said, really it was a challenge for us, how to work together, how to understand together, but also we have a lot of curiosity because Alice has been one of the big names in healthcare for many, many, many years. What Flavio and Fred was doing in First at IOB was something of the best examples that we can intuitively know, but we really don't know. But really, when we come with this model that Slava just explained, and we start comparing all the situations, from small situations, just changing an emergency department, big situations, changing the culture of a hospital, going left, going right, going up, going down, we see something that it was part of the discovery, it was part of the knowledge. We discovered that yes, we have something that in common, something that is going to these 5 principles, something that we can see that it can help us to do things better. And that increased my curiosity, for sure. So when we went to the Gemba, we were with a lot of eyes, not only to understand this Gemba, but also to understand which was these first principles that we are starting to see and how they were applied, and which is the commonalities and differences, the gaps in order to absorb this. And I think that also with these eyes, we try to explain each other. And that was impressive because learning is impressive. But when you have learning with the right guide and these 5 principles, I think it's a very right guide, really, your learning is impressive. So it was a very good experience going to the Gemba.
Thank you, Oriol. So now everybody can see on their screen the 5 guiding principles that the team was able to identify through their research. And we will now go through them briefly so that you can get a sense really of what they're all about. And then you will, of course, be able to read about them more in depth in the actual white paper, for which we're going to share a link at the end of the webinar. So the first one is don't wait for the CEO, which I guess can be somewhat controversial. So I would like to ask the CEO in the room, Fred, to please tell us a little bit about this. Like, what do we mean by don't wait for the CEO?
Oh, I can tell you. It's very hard to be the CEO and try to be the chief architect of a lean transformation. Well, once I started 10 years ago working on our own lean transformation, we were smaller. I was learning myself about lean, but now I'm leading another hospital, and it's really not easy to play both roles. So what is essential is about the idea behind don't wait for the CEO is that we're looking for someone to lead the transformation. It's a leader that will be at Gemba. Mostly an area manager would be the great guy for that. And he will work as the idea behind that is the chief architect. The chief architect, I love this term, this idea, because he's a designer and he will or she will design what's going to happen. And as a designer, she will work with everyone in the Gemba, at the Gemba, and will be worried about reporting. So the idea behind being a chief architect is a change agent that will drive and give methodological support to the process going on. So it can be external, it can be someone in the beginning that it's coming from outside. You see, so you have my sensei in the screen, Flavio. He was helping me in early beginning as a mentor. He was not the architect of our organization, but he was there mentoring myself. So he was the external resource I needed to help me develop my methodological comprehension about lean. And at that point, somewhere in point, I just don't need it anymore. And we kept going by our own. But like 2 years from now, I started working as a CEO in another hospital. And I just can't play the place of CEO and chief architect at the same time. The CEO has a lot of work to do besides just going to the Gemba. He has to answer for outside calls. He has to answer for board calls. He has to answer for every other stuff around the business transformation that is needed for a lean transformation. But he must be just supporting and helping and being informed about that. So the role of the chief architect is being the leader and the owner of a process, being the leader and the owner of a transformation, supported by the CEO. but not necessary with the CEO guiding the change. It's great when the CEO is available to guide and to give a lot of support, but you can start it without the CEO and show her results and give up updates and visions and go straight forward to an area change or a process change in several levels of your organization. So I think that's the idea behind. Don't wait for the CEO. I don't know if someone wants to add something about it, but that's the idea behind it. Oh, and I remember one important thing. CEOs don't stay too long in your organization. 20% of them leave in a year. So in 5 years, it won't be the same CEO. So this is an important reminder about you'll not be supported by the same CEO all the way through sometimes.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Fred. Let's move on to the second principle, which is what is your next move and why, or your first move even. I would like to ask Slava to briefly take us through this, please.
Well, yes, and the second principle is it shows we found out that it's quite critical to understand where to start the changes, where to start to change the layout or the process or the thinking, right? And the good point for that is to understand the critical pain point or the critical problem of the organization. It might lay within the patients, it might be inside the organization, but whether it's a safety or it's a quality issue, it's quite critical to understand why it is tied to the problems that are discussed within the organization. And when you don't know what to do at all, we found out that stability, bringing the situation to a stable state, would help to see the problems that can be tackled afterwards, attacked afterwards. And we also saw that making visible the process, the whole process as a value stream, would help also again to understand better where you could focus your change power with your team or you as an individual.
Very good.
We found that again that it's necessary to be within the team and asking questions to whether it's a patient, whether it's CEO or top managers, or within the team. By asking questions, it's better to move on from one problem to another, from one local point to another. Good to remember that creating this new experience, new process, will allow to use it as an example within the organization. That's why it's critical to understand where your first move or your first change would be, in order to set a good standard for changes, to have a good result. And just to understand, to keep in mind, to have a balance between technical and social impact of the changes you do. Not to be rather technical with on the tools of lean management, as we know, but also to include people and to try to change the culture while changing the game. This balance might be a good help with successful changes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Slava. Let's move on to the third one, which is making your problem an empowering message. So I'll ask Alice to please take us through this.
Okay, and some of the things that pretty much all of us agreed was that we needed to create ownership, because ownership of problems is critical to widespread transformation. And we called it emotional attachment. And creating that emotional attachment can only happen if you avoid what we call copy paste, right? And so in healthcare, we tend to love best practices, research backed, and then we roll out those solutions. So there's a danger to that, because as you roll out lean or roll out solutions, you're depriving the people the experience of understanding the problem themselves and learning and trying together. And there's that human need, right, to be involved and participate personally so that you can create knowledge for yourself and your team members. So that was a key insight for us, that if you want your people to own their own problems, you have to let them lay hands on the problem solving. And that leads to personal transformation, which collectively for your people leads to organizational transformation. So on the coaching side, what you want to do as a coach as you're coaching the future chief architect or future problem solver is provide enough challenge. We talk a lot about respect for people in the lean world. And you know, for us, what we said was challenge is creating that tension, making it just a little bit uncomfortable for the learner, a little beyond their reach, so that you're creating an environment of respect and learning. And so we talked about that as weaning. When you start this relationship of coaching and building capability, you set right up front the expectation that there will be a weaning process where you will still, as the coach, provide structure, direction, and tension for learning, but there would be support, but the expectation is that they will become independent at some point, something Dr. Fred just shared when Flavio was his coach. And so it's structured, but it's organic at the same time, right? Not prepackaged. Each learning relationship is different. So that's what make it your own problem. It's just being really careful about not depending on the improvement team or on some expert, but getting others to own all of their own problems.
Wonderful. As I listen to you guys talking, it occurs to me, like, you know, these are like problems that we see in healthcare and even in lean organizations, like in general, like, and I love how these principles like directly respond to and really tackle that difficulty that many organizations find, you know, like making your problem, like even like the one before, like, where do I start? What do I do? Like, there are so many problems. So that's what I love about this white paper. It really provides very practical advice that people can use. So let's move on now to the fourth one. And Flavio, this is, well, another problem, I guess. So like, what knowledge do we give to whom and when, I guess? So would you like to take us through this one?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, one thing that we realized while we were making the research, talking to people, going to the Gamba, is that there are many people inside hospitals. Of course, hospitals that were trying to do lean. They were overloaded with training, with many hours inside classrooms and trying to learn by, you know, traditional way. And in healthcare, people are very busy. It's quite difficult to take people away from their jobs and to train them, to teach them about, you know, the Toyota stuff and all these things. And we realized that one source of, you know, strength is try to give the right knowledge for the right people at the right time. What it means? It means we should focus on very critical tools and techniques. You know, the key to people solve problems. Of course, the A3 thinking, the way we work with A3 is very critical. The value stream map, the classical tool that we use in different environments, it plays a critical role in healthcare. And of course, if we go to the process level, the spaghetti charts that shows us how people are moving, how they're wasting their time by going and coming back and forth. And of course, the working with the evolving standards. So this basic four things, A3, VSM, spaghetti charts, and smart standardizations are the key things or the key features that we need to start and move forward. And we realized that if you even train people, like 1 day for managers, 3 to 4 days for the chief architects, not more than a week, 1 or 2 days for a manager, just the initial tools, the initial things that people need to get started. And as things go moving forward, people we will learn by doing. We strongly believe that we should, of course, learn with the books, with the classrooms and all this stuff, but by doing we will really develop the kind of skill, the kind of knowledge that we strongly believe that are required to keep things moving forward. So the fact to give the right knowledge for the right people at the right time is to avoid the overproduction or the overloading people with unnecessary information. They're too busy. They can't spend their time inside a classroom just waiting for the next piece of knowledge to move forward. They need to move forward with the basic things and learn by doing. This is what we got it as a guiding principle, because most part of the successful organizations we studied were practicing some kind of small batches of knowledge for the right people under the right mentoring. So this is the key to succeed. One of the keys to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Flavio. And now we move on to the fifth principle, cross-pollination. And Oriol and Christina, I guess I know you have a fantastic example of this here in Catalonia. Would you take us through this fifth principle, please? Like, what do we mean by cross-pollination?
Remember that one of the objectives of this white paper was trying to decrease at least a little bit the total time necessary to transform an organization. So something we realized during our research was that sharing the initiative of improvement or projects or whatever we want to call it inside our organization, sharing it with others was something that helped to accelerate the learning and the evolution of the people, how people think. And so some of us were doing with the organizations we collaborate, some others we identify that the organizations themselves did that sometimes. And so that's why we decided to establish these 5 principles. You see in the slide, Lean Day, this name we call it. Let's say it can be defined as, let's say, a small event where people from different areas can share periodically or each month what they are doing, which are their projects, the tools they are using, etc. So mainly sharing with the A3 tool. And so this kind of events really helps to, as I said, to accelerate also their engagement. You share tools, but also you share what is going good, what is not going so good. And so this is one thing that we highly recommend. We do a lot with the organizations, and it can be, we highlight, it can be external also, internal in the same organization, between areas, between teams, but also we recommend to in a way to do that external. So that means visiting other organizations from the same sector or from other sectors. This is also very interesting to do, and we recommend that as a key success factor.
Let me add something, because if I ask you, so here we are a lot of people, and I ask you, it's difficult to make a transformation. Well, we're talking about lean transformation, but if I ask you, it's easy to do a transformation, probably we're going to say, no, it takes a lot of time. And this sometimes is a problem. When you see 1 tree, it takes 1 year to produce a little flower that is going to be a fruit. So 1 year to take a fruit, it's a lot of effort just for 1 fruit. If you see this, oh, you don't have enough energy. But when you see the whole tree and the whole country full of apples, pears, watermelons, you see everything, it's amazing. So why not to put everything together on the same day? Because otherwise a lot of people say it takes a lot of effort just for one apple. It's my apple, it's true. But these days of cross-pollination between all of us, it sees really which is the advancing, the forward of the initiative. Also, it provides another things. First is, if you do that every, let's say, 4 months, you have a due date. And this helps. This helps also to advance. And as well, you have to explain. So it's not going to be the boss, the CEO, who's going to explain that? Is going to be the doctor, is going to be the nurse, is going to be the porter, is going to be the admin. So if we are talking about bottom up, this is a good way to show that. And also we realize transparency is the best. We don't have just to share successes, also to share fails or second attempts or third attempts. So we see that the organizations that are able to do that increase much better the speed, because you can see the thing as a whole, of course, in a volunteer basis. And also we realize that, as some people were saying in the chat, CEOs are important, but CEOs have to realize, but not only CEOs, doctors and heads of services and nurses. So what about cross-pollination? What about to see other people, or other people come to see you, and they don't need to be hospitals. They need to be wherever they are doing changes. We are crossing cafes with industry, with hospitals, with veterinary, with everybody. And they find this very, very, very successful and something very important for all of them. So cross-pollination is one of the principles, and linking what with Flavio had said, it's learning by doing. And this is one of the good things. So show the do and also learn from that.
That's fantastic. And I mean, I've been to many of these events that you've organized over the years, and whether it was within a hospital or between hospitals or between, you know, hotels and restaurants and hospitals, it's always been very interesting to see like the buzz in the room and like how much people were able to take away from that. And knowing about these transformations, I know, of course, how like this sort of event helped kind of accelerate the learning, and so it's really fantastic to see. So I think it makes perfect sense to have this as one of the 5 principles, and thank you for sharing your experience on that. Now, so we've kind of briefly taken you guys through the 5 principles. Of course, there's much more detail inside the white paper. There are, you know, examples from 8 hospitals, I believe, across 5 countries. So very practical examples that you can see. But another interesting thing about this project, I think, is that it was tested. So, you know, this team came up with this set of principles, and they did their research, and then they were like, well, we need to see if this works. So let's test it. And the first testing round for this was an event that was run in a hospital in Stanford, California. And as you can see there on the left, we have 4 of our authors. The blonde woman in there, Denise Bennett, she's in Australia, so she couldn't participate in this. It's very late over there. We would love to have her here maybe for a future webinar. But I would like to ask maybe Alice or Oriol, who were there, tell us about this event. What was it like? What did you do there, and what did you learn? How did these principles apply?
Well, this event was not easy. First, because, well, we said very beginning, so we were the privilege to work with Alice, we were the privilege to work with Fred and Flavio, and here we have the privilege to work with Denise. So Denise was little after inside the group, but was one of the people that in Link Healthcare, you know, all of you know Denise. So Flinders examples, it's one of the earliest senseis that we have in healthcare. So working with her also adds this challenge. There's something for us to learn. And I think it was very interesting because we can see how in very small amount of time, 2 days, we can see all these principles put in the place. So it was designed a workshop, tailor-made, of course, for Stanford. But I think that the best thing is what the participants said at the end. So, oh, we see different. We see it with a different eyes. And we see how they make the problem their own problem, and how they see this totally this cross-pollination even from people from, would say, from other hospitals. So we see how CEO was not there, but we have a champion. So CEO has a role. It doesn't mean that CEO is not important. CEO has a role, but we don't need to wait for the CEO to make the things. So in 2 days, how all these principles we put in place, designed the workshop, and what was the reaction of the people that was exposed to Lean, and with Denise, how this changed. So we're not going to say how was all the Stanford experiment, But yes, it was a little surprise how in this small amount of time, in a well-designed by Denise event, this works. So it gives a lot of things. So it's not things that we have studied that had happened, but also it's something that we can provocate. So it's something that we can apply. So it's something that it can help us to guide through this transformation. And it gives a lot of power also to this paper.
Thank you.
I don't know, Alice, if you...
Yes.
I would just underscore the last point, that it gave us a lot of confidence that we could take the white paper that happened when we reverse engineered what each of us was doing and finding out what that kind of principled approach was, but go to Stanford and figure out, can we go and apply it moving forward? And it was stunning. I know you say 2 days, but literally we showed up the night before and then we worked one day. It was incredibly fast, and it was also developing their improvement team as well as working in MRI. So it was amazingly fast. It gave us a lot of confidence in the paper. So thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't want to say that we solved all the problems in Stanford in just 2 days. Okay, so it was the workshop that was very good, and the area. So what we tried to do was okay in this. It
was mind blowing for some people there. It was just blowing. They just got an aha moment for what they did, because we went so deep in Gemba, and it was so impressive for them to see how complex they were, and so they got some great experience there. I think that was a real bottom line for me there.
Thank you. So as we move on, well, we're getting closer to the end. I would like to leave some space for questions. But before then, I would like to ask Fred, as a CEO of a hospital, like, how do these principles apply to your situation? How do you use them? How do you live them? How do you experience them? And perhaps even right now with this crisis that we're all going through.
So what is interesting at this time during this crisis is that we are almost trying to apply all of these clues, all of these tips for the chief architect all the way through. I mean, we had the practice to do huddles every morning, but now we're doing that more deeply and going deeper with the idea of what's our next move, because things are changing so fast during this crisis. I mean, we don't know what about this virus is. We are learning how to deal with that. So we are not talking about stability. We're talking about changing patterns every day. And well, this is not easy for everyone, but I think we were used to that, because we were trying in small experiments every day in our lean transformation. That was not that bad. I mean, we were more used for this pattern of constant change and learning by asking questions and trying to own our own problems, because we are using problems as treasures all the time. Now we're facing them and being challenged by problems all the time. So we had to, I mean, our infection doctor, our internists, they're saying, well, I have to give up on everything I believed before. We had to change everything, and we were starting all over again. We're doing all things from zero now. So the right knowledge for the right people at the right time is exactly what's going on at this point, because we're changing everything we knew about healthcare and how we should behave. So, and as long as I'm long involved with IOV and long involved with another hospital here in San Jose, and leading another hospital that is a big emergency department. Use it to be now, because now we're just an emergency, but we use it to see like 22,000 patients a month. So it's a big emergency department. We're cross-pollinating all the time with everyone. We're learning from each other. We're learning from actually learning from the team we are working, because we did an article few weeks ago, published it, and I learned a lot from that article. So I had the chance to use thoughts and ideas and changes that you provided in your systems, and we are using for our own now. So this is a great moment for applying these ideas, I think, and it's been very helpful for us. So it's a big challenge and a big moment, a hard time for everyone. So we're learning with that.
Thank you very much, Fred. I love when you said problems as treasures. I think that's a wonderful message that we should all really embrace. All right, before moving to the Q&A, I would like to ask Flavio to come full circle. Do you have any sort of closing remarks that you would like to share?
Yes, Roberto, thank you very much. Well, as I told at the beginning, we have a very bold objective, a purpose with this initiative, that is fix healthcare around the world. And I think that we give just a small step trying to connect the knowledge and the practice of all these amazing people that I had the privilege to work with during the last years. So we gave a first step. We tried to surface some of the knowledge that we've been, accumulating during the years. But it's just a small step. This article, this white paper doesn't mean anything. And if you don't read it, the rest of the people that are here with us, you must read it. You should read it and try to share these ideas with your team. I mean, it doesn't make sense to it's just a piece of paper. Would like you to capture those ideas and try to put those ideas into practice. So I would invite you to try those ideas, to try to use these guiding principles to foster your lean transformation. And please share with us the learnings, the ideas that came to your reality once you try to put those guiding principle into action. That's the reason why we wrote the article, we wrote the white paper. Would like people to put those ideas into action. So please let us know what is the result of this experiment in your reality. It was going to be a pleasure and an honor to listen from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Flavio. So I'm sharing now with all the participants and the attendees the link to the white paper. It's available for free. You can download it using that link. And now I would open the last few minutes to the Q&A. And I already see a couple in there that are about the first principle, really. And one of these questions says, if you don't wait for the CEO, don't you lose the connection with the why you're doing the transformation and then lose support from the leadership team? One of the main causes of failure in transformations. And the other one, and I'm going to read them together because they apply to the same principle, doesn't the CEO also need to be a role model in a more concrete way?
Okay, I will try to start it, but I will need some help. Well, the CEO as a role model, I don't see the CEO really as a role model. We can say that the CEO should do some stuff about being a leader when thinking about a lean leader, but just show respect and go to the Gamba and ask questions would be enough, but not to be enough. And role model is something that I think it's too much for me as a CEO. But when I look for, if you don't wait, we know that this is a controversial idea. Don't wait for the CEO, and we were expecting that. This is very controversial. The idea behind that is that, well, we have a problem we need to solve, and this problem it's throughout the organization, and this is the why. And if you got a mission and a vision, and you're looking after that, you got a why. And you got a true north to go after that. So I don't think that don't wait for the CEO will impact on that. If you're working in a project, and then the connection between the role model to a model line, and so that's, I think it's the connection. We should think about creating a model line to show for our CEO that this experiment can work and can be a good stuff for the system and can be helpful. And in this model line, you can think about the fourth principle, developing leaders, developing people. So developing role model for people. And so you can connect everything and make it work all together. And even if you don't have the CEO, you don't have to just have the CEO inside the game, but if he's against, it will not work for sure. That's one idea. I think CEO should be informed, willing to participate, okay with the transformation, but don't wait for him to come in and lead it. Probably he or she won't have time for do it. So that's the idea behind that. And the chief architect is a completely different person.
That's right. Thank you, Fred. Another question there's here. What are the key essential factors for transforming a non-lean hospital into a lean hospital?
I'm not sure that's the right way to think about it. No offense, whoever asked that question. But is the goal really to become a lean hospital? Is the goal to solve the problems that are in the way of you serving your purpose, which is probably to care for patients as safely as possible for your staff? So, you know, I'm asked that question a lot. You know, how do I transform a hospital? And I'll often just ask a question like, why do you want to do that? So I guess I would ask, why do you want to become a lean hospital? Like, what's under that goal? I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Alice. We have another question. It's very interesting. I introduced myself to Lean Culture just a few months ago. As a doctor, I'm worried seeing most of the Lean practitioners are engineers or have a similar background. What do you recommend as first steps to learn and becoming able to use this amazing methodology? Do you think it's possible to start if your organization is not interested at all?
For sure, yes. And that's maybe the tricky part of getting started. We strongly believe that is possible. I don't know if someone can just give me, you know, my feeling is that this is for everyone. And of course, we must start by the right movement. I don't think we should go. And the other hint is stop using Japanese words. You know, all this TPS, Toyota language, all this, it all came from the manufacturing environment. So, but the key thought, the way of thinking is universal. So one of the things that we've learned together, is stop using the Japanese words and try to translate those concepts into things that make sense for the people in daily basis. And this is something that I'm using. So stop using technical terms, stop using Japanese words, and do the things that must be done.
In the section on the white paper, we said, what's your next or first move? There's ideas there to think about, right? You always want to start with a problem that the business cares about, and the business could be your local area, or it could be the organization. It could be the physician group that cares about a problem, but you're trying to make examples so that people, you know, creates pull for interest in what you're doing.
I would add to what you said, that we are seeing more and more now people who's experts in Lean or internal or external change agent, chief architects that are not engineers. We are seeing how the community is growing more and more, doctors and nurses. And I would say also that all this Lean thinking, the scientific approach that we can find behind the Lean thinking, doctors and nurses are scientists, so they really understand a lot what it is about. And also I would say that a good point to start is read, and also maybe do some training. I don't mean inside the organization, maybe outside, but because it's really important for our experience to understand what is Lean and what is not Lean about. So, I mean, tools, methodology, and philosophy also. So.
Thank you. I would just use, we started like a couple minutes late, so I think we can take one more. Let me ask this question. So ultimately, what is the expectation if you implement these principles? Shortening the time for results, faster culture change, what is the expectation, guys?
Well,
I think it's
that we can link this. I will let you, Fred, in 1 minute. I think that this relates with the title of the A3 that we first produced. That was to make better healthcare in the world. And we are quite sure that we can do it through lean culture. So doing lean for all the aspects. So someone was saying, well, where can I start? Of course, with a problem. Trying to solve a problem. Without a problem is impossible to start. And why lean? Because it's common sense. So when we talk about problem solving, is the scientific method, the PDCA. When we are trying to share things, we make with this team value stream or spaghetti or whatever that help us. It helps us to make the double bean with pool. So there is a lot of tools, methodologies that helps to do that. So the goal is to make better healthcare. How? Probably with lean thinking. And we know that to do a very good transformation, we need people from inside, practitioners. And this was the problem. It takes too much to make a practitioner, to make some of these doctors, nurses, people. So how can we make in small batches, as Flavio said, how we can make that it's useful for all of us, that we can solve the things. So which is our goal? Our goal is to create lean practitioners all around the world in all the positions with, let's say, all the levels that with their influence, then they can solve their own problems, because healthcare, we are a lot of problems everywhere, like all the other sectors, how they can solve their own problems easier, quicker, and better. So this is the goal.
I was going straight forward to this answer. We're talking about better leaders, developing people. This paper is for chief architects. Is how can they work better and try to develop better their own environment and their own training, and how they can become better leaders and create a community of problem solvers. I think that's the idea behind it. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's not. Well, results is about process. So the right process get the right result. We're talking about process, not results. So we're looking for the process to develop leaders and foster leadership development.